Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're looking at something that quietly runs the modern world, and that is high-stakes data. We're talking about the kind of incredibly complex, high-volume data that literally keeps the lights on and keeps our hospital emergency rooms functioning. We're going to explore exactly how critical industries take this massive, chaotic sea of raw information and somehow turn it into decisive, real-time action. And to do that, we'll be looking closely at the methodologies of ZettaPulse Analytics. So, it's a massive question. How exactly do hospitals and power grids use raw data to save lives and energy? Think about it for a second. In these environments, you just can't afford a system crash. You absolutely can't afford a delayed report. A lack of real-time clarity doesn't just mean a dip in quarterly profits, it actually means a grid failure during a freeze or a patient waiting hours for a critical hospital bed. The real-world stakes of having fragmented data and critical infrastructure are just incredibly high. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, high-stakes data challenges. Second, introducing ZettaPulse Analytics. Third, healing healthcare with data. Fourth, energizing the power grid. And finally, the explainable AI advantage. All right, starting right off with Section 1, high-stakes data challenges, or the cost of chaos in critical infrastructure. Before we can really appreciate the solution, we've got to understand the problem. Listen, in environments where accuracy, regulatory compliance, and simple uptime are totally non-negotiable, bad data is a massive, massive liability. It's fascinating because if you look at two completely different sectors, you'll see they suffer from the exact same underlying disease, data fragmentation. Over in healthcare, fragmented electronic health records cause terrible administrative bottlenecks and skyrocketing patient wait times. Meanwhile, over in the energy sector, that same chaos takes the form of unpredictable grids, sudden equipment failures, and massive supply and demand imbalances. For these folks, finding a single source of truth isn't just a nice-to-have, it is an absolute operational necessity. Moving on to Section 2, introducing ZettaPulse Analytics, the engine behind the data. So who are they? Well, ZettaPulse Analytics is a specialized B2B data consultancy. Their whole mission is to bridge the gap between complex raw data and high-impact operational decisions, specifically for the healthcare and energy sectors. And a really key point here, they are not giving you some generic, off-the-shelf template, not at all. They're actually building purpose-driven architecture that respects the super strict regulatory compliance and the sheer speed required in these exact fields. Let's break down how this works step by step through their 4 core pillars. It all starts with data engineering and architecture, meaning they build secure, scalable pipelines to actually ingest and unify all that fragmented data. From there, they deploy business intelligence and interactive dashboards, which basically gives teams a clean, real-time visual control center. Next up is advanced analytics and reporting to automate compliance and track performance. And finally, machine learning R&D, where they deploy applied AI to predict future challenges. So it's a complete end-to-end journey, from raw data pipelines all the way to predictive AI. Which brings us to Section 3, healing healthcare with data, turning complex clinical data into action. Imagine this scenario. A regional hospital network was facing a huge, real-world challenge. Their electronic health records were completely fragmented, and the result? Severe emergency department crowding, massive staff overtime, and prolonged wait times just to get a patient assigned to a bed. They were stuck being entirely reactive, relying on manual discharge planning just because their systems simply did not talk to each other. So what did ZettaPulse actually do to fix this? Well, first, they came in and built out automated ETL and ELT data pipelines to unify all that EHR and lab tracking data in real time. Then, they deployed interactive, role-based dashboards so that clinical directors could instantly see current bed occupancy and pending discharges. But they actually didn't stop there. They integrated predictive regression models that could forecast admission rates and patient length of stay a full 24 hours in advance. That is a real game changer. And the operational impact of unifying all that data? It was staggering. They achieved a 22% reduction in emergency department wait times. Think about what that actually means for patient care on the ground. Plus, they managed to cut bed turnaround times from 3 hours down to just 45 minutes. That completely eliminated the need to trigger emergency surge plans during peak hours. I think one testimonial from the network really hit the nail on the head. They said, they don't just deliver data, they deliver actionable clinical intelligence. And that's exactly what happens when you turn raw numbers into a clear, usable narrative. Oh, and remarkably, by using those predictive machine learning models to analyze readmission risks, they also reduced 30-day readmissions by 18%. Just a massive win for both the hospital's efficiency and, most importantly, the patient's health. Let's shift gears to Section 4, Energizing the Power Grid, Precision Data for Next-Generation Grids. Now, let's pivot to a completely different kind of pressure cooker. Managing a regional power utility today is incredibly complex. The challenge they face? Unpredictable weather fluctuations, and the really tricky integration of variable solar and wind power into the grid, which often leads to costly supply and demand imbalances. The ZettaPulse solution here was to ingest hourly smart meter telemetry and weather feeds through ultra-low latency pipelines. Then, they engineered this advanced ensemble time series machine learning model, combining XGBoost and LSTM neural networks, if you want to get technical, to create hyperlocal electricity demand forecasting. The outcome was an astounding 96.8% forecasting accuracy across all regional distribution nodes. And to put that into perspective, the financial impact of having 96.8% accuracy is just profound. Because they could predict the grid loads so precisely, they actually achieved a 14% reduction in reliance on expensive secondary peaking power plants. All told, this hyper-accurate forecasting helped them avoid an estimated $1.8 million in annual grid imbalance penalties. That is literally the power of turning environmental telemetry into real-time intelligence. And this brilliantly illustrates the big shift in their second energy use case, which is all about asset performance. We're talking about the move from reactive to proactive maintenance. See, reactive maintenance means waiting for sudden turbine failures, which leads to incredibly costly emergency outages. Proactive maintenance, on the other hand, means streaming high-frequency IoT sensor data, stuff like vibration, temperature, and pressure, right into a unified cloud warehouse to detect micro-anomalies weeks before a catastrophic failure ever happens. The hard ROI on streaming that high-frequency IoT data? Undeniable. It resulted in a 15% reduction in unplanned asset downtime. By catching that mechanical wear early through automated alerts, they extended critical component lifespans, which ultimately lowered their overall annual maintenance expenditures by a full 18%. This brings us to our final stop, Section 5, the explainable AI advantage, or trusting the machine. Now, there is a bit of a catch to all this advanced prediction. If the operators on the ground don't trust the AI, they simply won't use it. And that's exactly where explainable AI, or XAI, comes in. It utilizes interpretable machine learning frameworks, things like SHAP values. So the crucial point is this. XAI ensures that stakeholders understand exactly why a prediction was made. In high-stakes fields like medicine or power generation, a black box AI that just spits out a recommendation, that is not good enough. A doctor or a grid dispatcher needs to act with absolute confidence. ZettaPulse prioritizes this transparency, ensuring the human in the loop always understands the machine's logic. So just to summarize their competitive advantage, ZettaPulse brings this really unique hybrid approach. First, they have domain-centric expertise. That means they already speak the complicated languages of healthcare compliance, like HL7 and FHIR, as well as grid telemetry like SCADA. Second, they utilize research-driven innovation. They're solving nuanced edge cases rather than just slapping on off-the-shelf models. Third, they provide end-to-end delivery, literally from raw data ingestion all the way to the final dashboard. And finally, they build scalable architecture designed to grow seamlessly with your enterprise. As we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a really critical question to ask of your own organization. Is your enterprise's data a scattered liability, or is it your strongest operational asset? In a world where precision is absolutely paramount, leaving your data fragmented is honestly no longer an option. Thank you so much for joining me today to explore how the chaos is being cured one data pipeline at a time.